Good morning and welcome to the second Wednesday safety session of 2022. I got 2021 on the paper. That's not going to work anymore. Thank you all very much for joining us today. We are broadcasting live from the offices of Stiles Construction. I love the talk show feel that we got here. We still got people grabbing breakfast. So if you're out there and you're curious as to what's going on here at the Stiles offices, we've got breakfast, we've got goodies. So we'd love to have you here joining us live. And thank you for joining us if you're in your truck or in your office. It's all good. So as always, I want to start off by thanking those people that allow us to bring you these second Wednesday safety sessions. So I want to say thank you to the team at Kelly Cronenberg. We got Mr. Cedric Alexander out there from the Kelly Cronenberg team working from his office, making sure that our tech is running nice and smooth and that our audio works. Thank you very much, sir. I also want to thank the team from Saferite Solutions for providing us with a fantastic breakfast today. Thank you to you all. And I especially want to thank the team from Stiles Construction. Stiles has been a fantastic host to us, not just for our safety sessions, but they also hosted our holiday celebration just last month, where we were able to raise $35,000 for Give Kids the World. Big part of that is thanks to Stiles. So thank you very much to Stiles for hosting us today and each month that we have our safety sessions. Also want to make sure I thank our title sponsor, Milwaukee. You'll see from Milwaukee a little bit later today. Milwaukee's handing out door prizes, so the folks that come in person also have the opportunity to win some great goodies from the team at Milwaukee. So can't forget the Milwaukee folks. Thank you all very much. Really quickly, before we get to the great Kevin Cannon, I want to make sure that I tell you all about our Safety Excellence Program. So our Safety Excellence Program, we've not had a safety recognition program since I have been here past 6 years. So I am really excited and hoping to hand out a lot of awards to a lot of the people that are in the room with us today and a lot of you folks who have been participating in our safety sessions for the past 10, 20 years. You are going to be receiving these in your inbox if you register today. Our online web portal is going to be available as well within the next couple days. We're working out some technical glitches that we got there on the Dropbox portion, but we'll have that up and running, and we'll also let you know once that's available. Applying for the award is very easy. Fill out the application, okay? Send us in your OSHA 300A, and you're good to go. That is for the silver award. Next awards up are going to require a little bit more involvement, but you'll see that on the application. Very important to note, regarding recordables of COVID, we are not going to be counting COVID recordables. So you can remove those from your log when you send it in to us, or just put a side note about that when you send that over to us. If you have any questions, you can send them over to me, Carlos at sfagc.org. That is Carlos at SF for South Florida, agc.org. And I'll make sure that I get those questions answered for you. Moving on to the part that you all want to see, our presentation today. As happy as many of you were to hear of the Supreme Court's decision to suspend OSHA's ETS on testing and vaccinations, there's a lot more out there for us to be concerned with when it comes to OSHA and their policies. Today's guest is very well positioned to help us prepare for what is ahead. Kevin Cannon is not only the Senior Director of Safety and Health at the Associated General Contractors of America, but he is also currently the Chairman of the Advisory Committee on Construction, Safety, and Health, which advises the Assistant Secretary of Labor for OSHA on regulations, standards, and policies that impact the construction industry. We are very grateful that, because I didn't know, he informed me that the comments are due today. So it's going to be a very busy day to Kevin. So I'm very grateful that he's able to join us from Virginia. And, you know, I was telling you earlier, Kevin, I know that we wish you could have been here in person, but I'm sure none of us are sorrier that you couldn't be here than you are. So the show is yours, sir. Please take on over.
All right. Thank you, Carlos. And Thank you for the members for inviting me again to join you for your second Wednesday safety meeting. As Carlos mentioned, I'll go over, what we might expect from, OSHA over the coming, next year or two. I'll start with what are the more pressing issues, the current, regulatory initiatives, one of which being the ETS, but we'll also touch on the HEAT, Advanced Notice of Proposed Rulemaking. And then we'll just review what was included in their latest regulatory agenda, which was the fall 2021. And then, there's a little bit of legislative activity that may or may not, develop that may impact us as far as safety and health goes in construction. Not directly, but it will definitely have an impact. We'll start off, and many of you know, the ETS was published in the Federal Register. Initially, there were December and January compliance dates, but that shifted with all of the court activity until January 10 and February 9. It applied to employers with 100 employees or more, would have been in effect, or what I'll say is it will be in effect or could be in effect with the potential for a permanent rule. I think you all saw the developments. There were 34 challenges filed in 12 different judicial circuits. AGC joined with ARTBA, or I'll say ARTBA, and SWACA, and SWACA is the Signatory Wall and Ceiling Contractors Alliance. They joined us in filing a petition, and really what we filed on was just the merits of it. Did OSHA have the legal authority to put forward such an emergency temporary standard, such a broad temporary standard? One of the other things is the Fifth Circuit issued a stay on November 6th. With the Sixth Circuit lifting the stay, ultimately it ended at the Supreme Court. So on Thursday of last week, the Supreme Court issued their own stay. The one thing I'll say about that is there are two tracks going on, right? You have the legal side, the litigation, but you also have the rulemaking side. And, as I mentioned up front, is that the ETS served as a foundation for a permanent rule. So that didn't stop that process, whatever went on in the court. So, OSHA is still looking forward or moving forward with potentially issuing a permanent standard. And, if you go to their website, they do have a statement from Secretary Walsh about the Supreme Court ruling, but they also highlight the fact that they're continuing to accept comments, which Carlos mentioned. What this ETS would have required, or may still require, it's not a dead issue yet, is employer policy on vaccinations, determining your vaccination status, offering support for employee vaccination, that's time off, paid time off, that is, or use of PTO. Again, I don't think this fourth bullet is anything different than what we're doing now, is notifying your employer of a positive test. Face covers for unvaccinated employees at no cost to the employer. Just information provided on the ETS and what your policies are. And then COVID testing for employees who are not fully vaccinated. And again, that would be at the cost of the employee. What I'll say is that we are submitting or drafting our comments. Again, we joined or SWACA and ARTBA joined us in filing the petition. And so we're filing comments today. And one of the things that, really what we're focusing on is not so much the legal authority of OSHA to issue such an ETS, but just arguing that they should have taken a risk-based approach. And, if they follow that path, then construction, for the most part, would not have been covered, because under OSHA's own assessment, construction falls into low to medium risk category. And, one of the questions that we also routinely field is, why is AGC fighting this? We support the objective of getting as many people vaccinated as possible, but we just didn't feel like, this was in OSHA's purview. And we do not feel like it should be the employer's responsibility to, especially under the threat of penalty, to to influence a personal choice. And we all know where the construction industry stands as far as vaccine hesitancy is concerned. So that's where we are on it. Not certain where this will go. One of the interesting things that we're following is if OSHA will continue to defend the rule, meaning that it would go back to the Sixth Circuit and they would hear the arguments on both sides on the merits of it. If you read the Supreme Court's decision, you'll see that they, on one hand, they say that OSHA does not have the authority to regulate what they call a public health emergency. But on the other, they say, if OSHA would have taken a risk-based approach, and they use the example of workers in the laboratory who are, working directly with the active virus, then they could see that being the case. So uncertain, what will happen going forward. But AGC is fully prepared to engage in further litigation if the lower courts take this issue up again. Again, the more pressing issues, these are things, of course, the ETS was issued through, issued in the Federal Register in November, but in October, we got what's called an advance notice of proposed rulemaking for a heat illness prevention standard for indoor and outdoor work settings. I think this is something that's important to the folks, especially in Florida. Using, the BLS numbers, OSHA is justifying, moving forward with it. And one of the things that they also talk about is the fact that there is no federal standard. You have California, Washington, Oregon did it by way of ETS summer of 2021, and Minnesota are the only state plans with some form of heat illness standard. Oregon's is pretty straightforward. Water rush shade. Washington's, it's bound to a time frame, and I believe it's May to September. But OSHA's just looking to put forward one of their own to cover all those that are not currently, employed in a state that has such a standard. AGC's been engaged in this effort, I'd say, since 2019. During that time, there was legislation introduced that would have pushed OSHA to issue a rulemaking through the pretty much a similar process as ETS, but not such a short timeline. So that's where we are with it. They did issue a request for information, as I mentioned, and we're working through our coalition to respond. And one of the things about the advance notice of proposed rulemaking, unlike a notice of proposed rulemaking, you don't have any regulatory text to go off of. It's just a series of questions, and they kind of align with some of these bullets. I pulled out what I thought the most important, and they ask questions about employer experiences with underreporting of heat-related illnesses, injuries, and fatalities. They talk about structural work. And the focus here is primarily on host employer, temporary agencies, and those types of arrangements. The business size, they're looking for information as to how contractors of varying sizes have been successful or not in implementing a heat illness prevention program. And definitely, one of the things is geographic region, and that's where we are kind of focusing on what's the experiences, and say, the Southeast Florida are much different than what you'd find in the Pacific Northwest, and how they go about regulating these geographic differences is really a huge question, and one that we'll weigh in on. And then climate change, of course, they use that as justification for such a rule. One thing I will point out is that when they announced that this advance notice of proposed rulemaking was going to be published in the Federal Register, they also talked about, developing a national emphasis program, which they've not yet completed, but they issued guidance to the regional and area offices. And I'm not for certain, if any of you have experiences with this, but what they've done, and I know there's a work group through another advisory committee that's working on the heat illness standard process, is what they call high heat priority days. And that's when the heat index reaches 80 degrees Fahrenheit. And, it really gives the regional and area, the regional administrator and area directors a lot of latitude as far as how they target inspections. I think you'd find it, very similar to, what we've heard from contractors about drive-bys as it relates to trenching operations. If they're driving by, heat index 80 degrees, they have the ability to stop, open up an inspection. Right now, in the absence of a standard, the focus will be on, what they put forth as the themes or concepts under their heat illness campaign, and that's water, rest, shade. And if you're doing something along those lines, I can't say you're guaranteed to have a positive outcome with the inspection, but I think there would be more of a consultation experience rather than a true enforcement experience. But, that's where we are with it. Those comments are due next Tuesday on the 25th. And we're working through the coalition to respond to it. And, it's at a short order, but if any of you have any, thoughts on, how OSHA might structure such a rule, please feel free to reach out to me directly or through Carlos. Now,
that'll be interesting, Kevin, because I think 80 degrees is what we call winter here.
And that's the issue, is how they're, and, California has a trigger height. I believe theirs is 85. If OSHA is going to move forward, and I know there's been serious discussions about the 80 degree Fahrenheit, trigger temperature, again, if it's for Oregon, 80 degrees is their trigger temperature. But at that point, there's simply to provide water, rest, shade. And then they have what they call enhanced provisions at 90 degrees. And I would suspect that for much of the summer months, if OSHA is to follow such a format or pattern, folks in Florida would always be in that enhanced provision phase. So, this is the first step. This is only to inform them. What they say is we'll take these comments, review and determine what the next step in the process may be, and that could be moving forward with rulemaking or not. I can guarantee you that they are going to move forward with rulemaking, as this is, the administration's priority. As I said, this has been something that they've been pressured into moving forward with since 2019 and a little bit before. So, we'll do our best to keep the members informed and, weigh in on their behalf. Some of the things.
Kevin, thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. Some of the things that they might get to, and, and for those of you who follow the regulatory agenda, these are just things they put out there, most of which have been on the regulatory agenda for, many years. This, perfect example is the amendments to the grain and derricks standard. There's been a lot of discussion, I'd say since shortly after the rule was finalized in 2010. Here we are, 2022, and it's still not, fully finalized, as I'll call it. And some of the biggest issues, two of the biggest issues would be how they treat forklifts under the standard. Right now, if you do a strict interpretation of the regulatory text, forklifts could be considered as falling under the scope of the crane standard. Right now it says carrying loads under the forks from a winch or hook. And they want to change it to a winch and boom. I think they recognize that one, there's no specific certification for it, and two, there's really not one that would be similar to it as well. And then the other is how they're going to treat the proximity alarms and insulating devices, and what they call NERDL approved, is nationally recognized testing laboratory. At the time they put forward the rule, there were no proximity alarms or insulating devices that were approved through that process, and as of 2022, there still aren't. And so they need to figure out how they're going to treat that, because that regulatory text remains in the rule. I'm not for certain if they'll just drop it or issue further guidance. HASCOM, very simple. This is more of an issue for the manufacturers. However, there is some compliance obligations for contractors, such as training for new hazards, if identified by the manufacturer or distributor in new or updated safety data sheets. There was an informal public hearing held on September 21. We did participate in it through the coalition and are working on some of the follow-up from it. And most of it is just, albeit, they said the cost would be minimal to construction, but they did not identify a cost. So, that's our primary argument, is that, hey, construction's covered, but you did not, provide what the cost, obligation, or burden might be with future compliance of it. The one thing about, the hazard communication standard, or aligning it with GHS, is GHS is a little bit more, nimble in their updates than the OSHA rulemaking process. So OSHA is playing catch up at this point, and I can see this being frequent and regular occurrence where they have to maintain alignment with GHS. One of the others is the PPE in construction, and simply put, what they want to do is make the language consistent with what's found in the general industry standard, and basically saying that any PPE must be a proper fit. I don't think we can argue with the need for certain PPE to fit properly. Fall protection is one that comes to mind, but the concern that we have is fit can be subjective in the field as far as enforcement proceedings will go, and so that's one of the areas that we're weighing in on as well. They had in the fall 2021 regulatory agenda that we would see something by September. Again, those are target dates, and we've yet to see anything on it. But I do believe that's the result of heat and the ETS, of course, and heat illness prevention standard being their priority. Here's one that we were supportive of. I'm not for certain, what the views are of many of you in the room, but we felt like, and as part of our, settlement agreement, or informal settlement agreement with OSHA at the time, that we sued them when it came out by way of coalition, and as we were working through those proceedings, we had a informal settlement agreement with OSHA to revisit Table 1. I know a lot of you are familiar with Table 1, and I hope you agree that you find it to be a easy compliance tool, but we felt like it was limited in the number of tools or tasks that were identified. We felt like the controls could be expanded during the pre-rule stage, I'll call it. OSHA provided options. You had, for most of the tools and tasks on there, you could either use, a dust collection system or water delivery system. When we got the final rule, a lot of those dust collection systems were removed from Table 1, and OSHA's justification was that they did not have a lot of data to support their inclusion. So they've opened up, or they plan to reopen Table 1 to expand the tools and tasks, and hopefully the controls. We'll work, through the coalition again and with our members, because we're going to have to provide data. They've not been clear, is it, 5, sampling results, 100, or whatever it might be to justify the inclusion of these control methods. But it's something that we'll have to work on with the members, and hopefully get the controls expanded, as well as some of the tools and tasks. And an example of a task that we've identified is broom trucks. We had a lot of questions up front as how folks should treat, the sweepers, the broom trucks, and that's one that OSHA is considering, just as an example of tools and tasks and the expansion of Table 1. There is also, a lot going on with the powered industrial trucks. They did issue the notice of proposed rulemaking in 2021. We did weigh in on it. It was more of a series of questions, but this is more on the design side of really not much of an impact on contractors, but more so on the manufacturers designing their equipment to meet the latest ANSI standard. But they're also looking at updating and collecting information on maintenance, use of powered industrial trucks, the environment in which they're used, and training of operators. And if many of you are familiar with the MEWP standard, the ANSI standard that recently came out, this is very similar. However, unlike the MEWP, OSHA has not moved forward with adopting it as yet, but they do plan to do so with the new or not so new powered industrial truck standard for, through ANSI. Another issue related to silica is the medical removal provisions that were in the original rule, but OSHA did not include it in the final rule. They were sued by the AFL-CIO, and so the court said, OSHA's position was, once you get silicosis, you got silicosis. It's not like, having elevated blood lead levels where they can normalize. Once you got it, you got it. Removing you from the task at hand would not do anything. AFL-CIO and the courts were not satisfied with that response, so they told OSHA to consider it further. OSHA could expand on their justification, or they could move to include it. So, that's something that we'll also be paying attention to as it progresses. One thing that I call this the volley, and I think you remember under Dr. Michaels, they put forward the rule that would require certain contractors of certain sizes to submit information to OSHA electronically. The 300 log, the incident reports would have needed to be submitted for contractors with 250 or more. Those from 20 to 249 would have had to submit the 300A. When the last administration came in, they kind of said, no, everybody across the board, regardless of size, is going to have to just submit their summary. Well, now there's an effort to reinstate those more detailed reporting requirements. And, the bigger issue is making these things, publicly available. Of course, it would scrub any, personally identifying information of the employee, but it would maintain the contractor's, name on these electronic forms that would be made public. So they were scheduled to put out a notice of proposed rulemaking in December. That's not yet happened, but this is one, again, basically what we'll have to do is just dust off our comments from, 2 administrations ago and weigh in on it. Of course, I put the COVID-19 emergency temporary standard, basically guidance or an enforcement directive is what, I was getting at. There's not been such a document published as of yet. I know they're working on it. I'm not sure, if the court decision has halted that effort, but that is one thing that we'll be on the lookout for. I put infectious diseases on here because there's a lot of confusion out there as far as, what that means, who it's going to apply to. And basically, this is a healthcare focus right now. If you all recall the healthcare ETS that was published in June, OSHA let expire in December. And the reason for doing so is that they're going to fold that into a broader infectious disease rule, but that will be specific to healthcare and healthcare related industry sectors. So just wanted to put that out there so it would clarify what OSHA is doing on the infectious diseases side. For those who have dual compliance obligations under OSHA and MSHA. MSHA is moving forward with a silica rule. As far as some of the discussions I've been part of, it may be based largely in part on or modeled after the OSHA silica rule. The one thing that's different about MSHA versus OSHA is that MSHA has a lot of data. They are either, unlike OSHA, they are required to go out either twice a year or once a year. So they've had plenty of opportunities to collect data to support, however they proceed with their silica rule. And the last thing is the drug testing program and safety incentive rule. This was really part of the record keeping rulemaking, again, during Dr. Michael's tenure. And basically what it said was that, blanket drug testing programs and certain safety incentive programs could have a negative impact on, injury and illness reporting, and could be, what would they call it? We call it the Anti-Retaliation Provisions, as they categorized it. It's now moved to long-term action. The last administration wanted to, they came out and said, drug testing programs and safety incentive programs are not, a violation of the Whistleblower Act, and they did not get to move forward with it. So we're not certain where that will go. I know that's probably not aligned with the current views of this administration, so it may remain on the long-term action list under the regulatory agenda. And then lastly, we'll talk about some of the legislative activity. There's movement within the House and Senate to decriminalize. They don't go so far as to say legalize marijuana, but one of the biggest issues that we have with this is that it fails to speak to how an employer is to maintain a drug-free workplace. They do talk about individuals who fall under the DOT regulations as it relates to substance abuse, but is very silent on an employer's right to maintain a drug-free workplace. So we've been engaged with, the House and Senate, through my colleague, Jim Young. We've also worked with the National Safety Council on this issue. And one of the more interesting aspects of this is that, AGC is really the only employer association that's really weighed in. Our other construction associations have not engaged. The Chamber of Commerce is, they've not engaged as well. So that, we find that interesting, but we'll continue to work, with the National Safety Council and the respective committees on the Hill to continue to raise our concerns. Another Protecting America's Workers Act, pretty much what that is a update or revision to the OSHA Act, and one of the focus, some of the focus would be enhanced criminal penalties, enhanced whistleblower protections, and expanding the coverage of public employees. One thing you'll see is not on here, and I'll talk a little bit more about where we might go with civil penalties, but you don't see civil penalties, and that's because of the Bipartisan Budget Act in 2015, which increased the or indexed the increases according to inflation. And many of you may have seen the notice, and I saw it yesterday, where OSHA announced the increase of penalties for 2022. So they already have, a mechanism in place, automatic mechanism to increase the penalty. So that's why you see it you do not see it on this list. But one of the other things is, and I'm not for certain again, is the Build Back Better plan. My colleague Jim Young, as much as the media seems to speculate that this thing is dead, he's not so confident. He thinks that, they could reduce the price tag, at least to deliver something. But one thing that's in there, for us safety folks, the child care and elder care and things of that nature, really isn't a focus, but what you'll see is there's a proposal in there to increase the OSHA penalties pretty much. If you look at the OSHA Act, you could say it's an increase of, a tenfold increase, but with the indexing of the increase of penalties since 2016 is really, a fivefold increase, and it would make the willful and repeat violations a maximum of 700,000, minimum 50, and for serious and failure to obey violations, a maximum of 70,000 versus the 13 and some change, or nearly 14 that we see right now, or the 7,000 that's in the OSHA Act. So, what I'll say about this is there's not much we can do to affect, these penalty increases. We're not for certain, what others' views are on it, but, we've tried to at least offer some, creative alternatives as to how they might use these dollars if they do move forward with it. But otherwise, I think we should just brace for these significant increases. So that's what's going on the regulatory and legislative front. I'll take any questions now, but before we get into the questions, I'll, as Carlos mentioned, we are approaching our convention. It's going to be in Grapevine, Texas. For those of you who are participants in our finals judging, if any, we'll see you there. For those who would like to join us for the safety track or just sitting on the judging itself, we do have that option available to you.
Yeah, so
Carlos and everyone.
All right, here we go. Back live. Can you hear us all right, Kevin?
I can, yes.
All right, cool. So you kind of stole my thunder, man. I was going to give you a big intro to talk about the convention. So it was a pleasure seeing you at convention this year when it was in Orlando. But I know that our friends in Texas do everything bigger. So, just so everybody's aware, it's going to be, let's see, I got it here in my notes. So March 28th through the 31st, going to be in Grapevine, Texas. The content is awesome. So the presentation that you did with the rest of the legislative team was fantastic. I think you stole the show because you scared everybody. So because you really scared everybody. So that's, it's fantastic. So for those of you who are here in person that got to experience, those of you who are out there, man, I would really consider going out to Dallas, which Grapevine is just outside of Dallas. It's at the Gaylord Palms. So it's a great resort. Join us. Kevin's going to be there. He's going to have his entire team there. So I'd love for you all to come out and join us. Kevin, is there anything else you want to mention that you'll be doing at convention?
Again, we offer educational tracks. This is where we go through our finals judging process. For those of you who participated in it in the past, you'll figure, it's the 5-minute presentations where, all the finalists deliver, provide an overview of their safety program. We found in the past that there are agency members that come to just sit through that, take notes, and learn, what their peers are doing. If you're not interested in, that portion, we do have a dedicated safety track over, I'd say, the course of 2 days that provides a variety of, educational sessions on safety and health. So again, in the past, there was very little for the safety and health professional to engage in at the convention. I think we've done a good job of changing that. And so join us if you'd like. One thing I'd like to do, and, Carlos, you mentioned, you're reinvigorating your safety program. We did launch a new safety program last year. It may have caused a little confusion because it was done so at the same time as the AGC Willis Construction Safety Excellence Awards, which is a company-based safety awards program. But what we did this year was, again, thanks to Milwaukee, we partnered with Milwaukee Tool and launched a Construction Safety Professional of the Year program, which is specific to safety and health professionals, whether it's at the corporate, regional, or project level. But we've also launched a construction safety champion, and that is dedicated towards the your frontline supervisions, superintendent, foreman, project managers, and we feel like it's very important to recognize the individual who's responsible for the successes of the safety and health of the workers in the construction industry. So, I know you work very closely with Milwaukee for these meetings, so I just want to put that out there and thank them for their support.
Yeah, no, Milwaukee's awesome. And I got to find out here at their meetings that their markers are in demand. So, my Milwaukee rep is here, I want markers, man. So, all right, just letting them know. So inside joke here for our safety folks. Kevin, let's get to the questions, man. Does anybody here have any questions for Kevin?
Yes, I do have one here. Is it legal to ask a worker if he or she is vaccinated? Yes, it is legal. You can ask yes or no. If you want to go so far as, request proof, you can do that. I would just leave it at, are you vaccinated? Yes or no. And not dig any deeper than that, as far as, why or why not. So yes, you can ask that question.
Awesome. Thank you for taking those questions off the chat. Anybody have a question here? Yes, sir.
Follow up to that one as far as what does AGC consider vaccinated? And then so many boosters, all those things, right? 3 boosters, 4.
Well, not AGC. Well, AGC. It doesn't matter what we. What is OSHA's definition of vaccinated right now?
Currently, they're vaccinated. Their definition of fully vaccinated is 2 weeks post single dose of the J&J, and 2 weeks post the 2-dose series of Moderna and Pfizer. They do not. They've not brought in the booster shot aspect of it. So it's just if you've completed the series of the Moderna and Pfizer in 2 weeks post, or 2 weeks post a single shot of J&J. They do not. Booster shots are not factored into their definition right now.
And no credit for being infected once, twice, maybe 3 times.
No,
third time is not the charm.
No, I do know some folks who've had it 3 times, but no.
Yeah, I know somebody has had it twice after being inoculated, so it is what it is. Yeah. Hey, any other questions?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Kevin. Thank you for your time this morning. My name is Thomas. I'm with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Am I talking too fast?
No, I got you, Thomas.
Oh, let me get the mic over here.
All right.
Go ahead.
My question is related. Let me go back to your heat-related illnesses and injuries. What is OSHA doing in coordination with the military? I'm also 21 years military. Are they going to go to a wet bulb standard? Could that possibly be doing that too?
I'd say all options are on the table now. One thing that we'll say is to keep it simple. And as I mentioned, up front, project, supervision, they're really where the rubber meets the road, and we don't want to make it too complicated for them to figure out, which direction they should go as far as responding to these elevated temperatures. So, and I understand, and when OSHA put out their notice, in addition to citing the 4 states with their own standards, they did say, and the military, right? But our approach is just to keep it simple. And not, make it too complicated or complex for folks to comply with. And I know, we work closely with the folks here at the headquarters in USACE, and, that's been part of our discussion as they move through the revisions of the EM 385. Let's just keep it simple. And as so long as it's effective in protecting the workers, let's not overly complicate it, if that makes sense.
Thank you, sir.
Awesome. That. Thank you. Any other questions? Come on, folks. And we got anything else on the chat? Let's see. No, I think we're good. Give it one more second for anybody else on the chat or anybody here. All right.
There is one right there. It was, if OSHA will accept any vaccinations from other countries. What I will say is they will only accept the vaccinations that have been, approved through FDA.
Okay, cool. That's a great question. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Basically, my question is, if the employee is vaccinated and some of the guys are not, are they required to be, to have a negative every week, or that's part of the OSHA, or that's part of our policy as a company?
So let me repeat that. So this is versus OSHA policy versus company policy. If someone is vaccinated, are they required to be tested each week?
No.
If someone's non-vaccinated, are they required to be tested each week?
Yes. They're required to, well, again, that's if the ETS survives. But according to the ETS right now, unvaccinated employees are required to produce a negative test result on a weekly basis. They say, weekly or every 7 days, one and the same. But yes, that is a requirement under the ETS is to produce. And again, as I mentioned with the face mask, that is at no cost of the employer. So the employee is going to have to foot the bill for these weekly tests.
Wow. Okay. Great question. Thank you. Anybody else? All right. Kevin, as always, man, you're awesome. Thank you for the wealth of information you bring to us and your hard work over there. I know you must be busy these past few months. So thank you very much for taking the time to join us.
Well, appreciate the invite, and down the road, hopefully I can come back and join you again, maybe in person. But of course, it would probably be during the summer when it's nice and warm here as well, and not the 30s that I'm dealing with.
We'll figure out a way to get you here during wintertime. Don't worry about it, man. We'll figure something else out for you. But I look forward to seeing you in Texas, where everything's bigger.
Yep, looking forward to it.
Wins, except their playoff wins. Thank you, man. I got to take a shot at the Cowboys fans. Thank you. So, hey, thank you all to everybody who joined us. Really quickly, I just want to remind you all that we are turning 100 years old this year. We were founded in July of 1922, and we're going to be celebrating on February 19th. We're going to be taking it back to the Roaring 20s. We're going to be at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, party sponsored by our friends at Nielsen Hoover Group. They're the title sponsors. So come out and party with us. You can find information on that event on our website, sfagc.org. You'll also be able to see our events calendar. Next Thursday, we are going to be having our Amateur Sommelier and Construction Expert Series event. The topic is going to be a roundtable on taking a team approach with your construction team, your GC, specialty contractors, engineers. So make sure that you register for that event. Before I move on, I do have an introduction I want to make. We always try and help out our local construction programs. And today we have Sudeep Subedi from the Moss School of Construction Management at Florida International University, my alma mater. Sudeep, come on up. So Sudeep is working on a project, and he needs to interview some construction professionals. I'm going to let him tell you a little bit more about that when he gets on up here.
Thank you, Carlos.
No, thank you.
Support.
There you go.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. So I'm Sudeep Subedi. I'm from Florida International University. So I'm with, like Carlos mentioned, I'm with the Moss Department of Construction Management. Actually, I finished my PhD on December 2021, and I joined back as a visiting assistant teaching professor at FIU. And my team, we're doing some research related to construction workers' safety, but the problem is we're doing it from inside the university room. So we needed some help from safety experts, safety personnel. And right now we're conducting some interviews with different construction key players, from workers to supervisors to subcontractors, owners of the construction companies or project managers, safety directors, or all the key players involved in construction. So if you could provide us your maybe 20 to 30 minutes, be it via Zoom or in person or in your construction site, then it would really help us our research. And my research is more related to soft tissue injuries that are prevalent among construction workers. So from doing some research, reading some literature papers and all those things, we found that these are kind of big issue within construction industry. But we wanted to validate those data, talking with actual people who are working in construction site and who sees things in construction site. So that's our research right now. And then we're trying to collaborate with people from construction field to see how we as a researcher might be able to help like elevate or like reduce those kind of injuries in sites. So that's the basic of our research, and then that would be the topic that we'll be discussing on the interview. So thank you so much, Carlos, for your time, and then we'd really appreciate it. Yeah, and I can promise you that it won't be more than 20 to 30 minutes for sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Carlos.
Cool. You're very welcome. So yeah, no, and not only Sudeep, but we have a couple other college programs that has also reached out to us for help on studies related to construction safety. So if it's something that you would like to help, you want to advance the information available to you all safety directors, let me know. I'll be happy to plug you in to these very cool and innovative programs. That being said, I want to thank Roger from Milwaukee for joining us today. We're going to be doing our raffle off camera. So those of you who are interested in joining us live, we got a great crowd, man. Come on in. It's a wonderful space for us to be in. And we'd like to have you here and feel your warmth. All right. Breakfast is being provided, as always, by the team of Saferite Solutions. Thank you very much. Team of Kelly Cronenberg, thank you very much for your technical assistance. And I also want to thank the members of our safety committee, Deborah Hampton, Ian Schwartz, Jose Bobadilla, Mark Leon, Enrique Sequeira, and the great and mighty Brian Cardona, right there in the back. Thank you, Brian, for joining. Hey there. And thanks, man. I want to appreciate send my appreciation to all you joining us online. And have a great afternoon. See you next month, where the topic is going to be everyone's favorite topic, COVID, do's and don'ts of COVID on the job site. So thank you very much. Have a great day, everybody.